When I first moved into Oak Ridge Estates, I wanted one thing above all else: peace. After more than 2 decades working in Washington, constantly surrounded by phone calls, crises, and the endless noise of politics and investigations, I needed quiet. I spent too many years in the shadows of federal buildings, reading reports that would keep most people up at night. So when the Bureau offered me early retirement, I didn't hesitate. I bought a modest home 3 states away, in a neighborhood with trim lawns, white fences, and a sign that read "A community that cares." It looked like safety itself. I told no one who I really was. On the deed, my name appeared as James Lewis, a middle name and my mother's maiden surname, perfectly ordinary. To my new neighbors, I was a polite man in his early 50s who liked black coffee and early morning walks. I nodded at joggers, waved at kids on bikes, and fixed the squeaky hinges on my mailbox. Nothing more, nothing less. For the first month, it was everything I'd hoped for. The air smelled of pine, the lake glistened at sunrise, and the loudest thing at night was the croak of frogs. But then came her. Her name was Karen Whitfield, president of the Homeowners Association. Her business card, which she handed to me within 5 minutes of our first meeting, actually read, "Oh, President, Oak Ridge Estates Community Integrity Committee." She was tall, precise, and spoke in bullet points. I met her the day I moved in, still unloading boxes. "Mr. Lewis," she began, as though reading from a script, "welcome to our community. We take pride in keeping Oak Ridge Estates beautiful and orderly. You'll find our guidelines in this packet." She handed me a 40-page booklet wrapped in plastic. I thanked her, and she gave me the kind of smile that wasn't a smile at all, a thin, tight line of practiced politeness. That first week, she came by 3 more times. Once to inform me that my garbage bins were visible from the street, Section 3, Subsection B. Once to comment that my porch light was a non-standard color temperature, and once to remind me that lawns should be mowed every Saturday before noon. Each time I nodded and thanked her, the same way I used to when members of Congress thought they were helping an investigation by offering irrelevant advice. But even back then, something about her struck me, the way she watched. Her eyes lingered too long, her questions dug too deep. "What line of work are you in, Mr. Lewis?" she asked once, casually trimming her roses. "Consulting," I said. "Oh?" she pressed. "What kind?" "Security." That ended the conversation, but it started her curiosity. From that day on, I noticed small things: the same car parked down the street when I left for groceries, a drone hovering suspiciously near my backyard, anonymous community surveys slipped into my mailbox asking for employment information. It was clear she didn't like mysteries in her neighborhood. Still, I kept my calm. Years in the Bureau had taught me that people like Karen were often harmless, loud on the surface, hollow underneath. I ignored her notes, followed every actual rule to the letter, and stayed polite. But politeness only made her more determined. Then came the neighborhood barbecue. It was supposed to be friendly, but Karen ran it like a corporate summit. Everyone had assigned seating. The food was arranged by HOA subcommittee. When she introduced me, she said, "This is Mr. Lewis. He keeps to himself, but we're working on that." The way she said "working" made a few neighbors laugh, but I caught the faintest edge in her tone, as if my independence was an obstacle she meant to remove. Later that evening, while I was leaving, she stopped me by the driveway. "We value transparency here, Mr. Lewis," she said. "I like to know who's living among us. Some people might get nervous when they can't find anything about a new neighbor online." I smiled. "That's the point of retiring, isn't it?" "Less defined." Her eyes narrowed, calculating. "Retiring from what?" "Just life in the fast lane," I said, stepping into my car. That conversation cemented it. She didn't trust me, and people who don't trust you tend to start searching for reasons not to. A few weeks later, the real trouble began. One Tuesday morning, I went out for my usual jog around 6 a.m. The street was quiet, mist curling off the lawns. Karen's car wasn't in her driveway, which was odd. She was usually up early, pruning or inspecting something. When I returned 40 minutes later, I saw her vehicle parked crookedly at the curb near my house. She was standing by her trunk, pretending to check the taillights. Our eyes met briefly before she hurried off toward home without a word. Something about that moment set my instincts tingling. I'd spent a career reading micro-expressions, the twitch before a lie, the half-smile before guilt, and that look she gave me wasn't casual surprise. It was fear. I didn't act on it right away. I went inside, showered, made breakfast, and planned to drive into town for errands. But when I opened my car door, the air inside felt wrong, stale, like it had been sealed overnight. On the passenger seat sat a small plastic pouch filled with white powder. For a long moment, I just stared at it. My first thought was evidence drop. My second was setup. And my third, the one that brought a slow, cold smile to my face, was she's made a mistake. I didn't touch the pouch. Instead, I did what years of procedure had drilled into me. I photographed it from every angle using my phone, the timestamp clearly visible. Then I stepped back and looked around. The street was quiet, too quiet. Curtains moved in one window. I could practically feel eyes on me. Across the street, Karen appeared again, standing by her mailbox. She wasn't pruning roses this time. She was holding her phone, angled discreetly in my direction. She was filming. I realized then exactly what she was doing. She wanted a scene. She wanted to be the one who caught the criminal in her neighborhood. Maybe she'd convinced herself I was hiding something. Maybe she just wanted the thrill of being right, but she'd gone too far. A distant wail of sirens broke the stillness, growing louder, closer. I sighed. So she called them already. The cruiser pulled up within minutes, lights bouncing off the tidy white fences. 2 uniformed officers stepped out, hands resting lightly on their holsters, scanning between me and Karen. "Sir," one of them called, "we got a report of possible contraband in a vehicle matching this description. Is this your car?" "It is," I said evenly. "I haven't touched anything inside." "You might want gloves." Karen came rushing over, playing the part of the concerned citizen. "Officers, I saw him put something in there earlier this morning. I think he's dangerous. We have children here, please." Her voice trembled in just the right places. To anyone else, it might have sounded convincing. To me, it was performance, rehearsed, deliberate. The officers moved cautiously. One retrieved gloves and an evidence bag, while the other asked me to step back. I complied, hands visible, calm. Years of training had taught me how to de-escalate a room without saying a word. When the officer lifted the pouch and sealed it, he frowned. "Powder's not leaking. Doesn't look like anything we've seen lately. We'll test it." Karen crossed her arms. I told you he was up to something." The other officer gave her a polite nod but didn't answer. His eyes flicked toward me, measured, curious. "Sir, mind telling us what you do for work?" "Consulting," I said. "Security and compliance." He jotted it down. "Got some ID on you?" I reached slowly into my wallet and handed over basic state license, one of the Bureau's authorized cover identities. He examined it, then nodded. "All right. We'll take this for testing. Mind waiting here while we run it through preliminary?" "Of course," I said. Across the road, Karen looked triumphant, her lips twitching into a self-satisfied smile. She thought she'd won, that her little setup had cornered the stranger she couldn't control. She didn't know that beneath the calm exterior, every step of her plan had already failed. The officer radioed back to dispatch. The results would take only a few minutes. I watched Karen pacing now, whispering into her phone, probably alerting the rest of her committee to the incident. She wanted witnesses when her story made the rounds. But as I stood there, hands in my pockets, heart steady, I knew this was the moment everything would turn. I hadn't told anyone in years what I used to do, but the truth has a way of arriving precisely when it's meant to. I looked at Karen, then at the officers, and thought to myself, this ends today. And that's when the field test beeped. The officer holding the test kit stared down at the small packet in his gloved hands as the seconds ticked by. The solution in the vial stayed a flat, lifeless blue. No reaction, no chemical change. Finally, he looked up at his partner and shook his head. "Negative," he said. "Nothing illicit here. Probably baking soda." Her face flickered, triumph replaced by confusion, then alarm. "That can't be right," she said too quickly. "You must have tested it wrong. He had it in his car. Why would anyone keep—" "Ma'am," the senior officer interrupted gently, "please step back." I stayed silent. I'd spent years learning when to let a moment breathe. Sometimes the truth works best when you don't rush it. The younger officer approached, returning my wallet and license. "Sorry for the hassle, sir. Looks like there's been some kind of misunderstanding." "No problem," I said evenly. "Mind if I make a quick call before you clear the scene?" He hesitated, sensing something underneath my calm. "Sure, go ahead." I pulled out my phone. Not the civilian one the HOA had seen me use, but the secure bureau device I kept for emergencies. I tapped a single contact labeled Director's Office, private line. It rang once before a crisp female voice answered. "Lewis?" "It's me," I said quietly, turning slightly away from the crowd. "Small incident here in Oak Ridge Estates. Might need a courtesy confirmation." "Copy that," she replied. "Want me to patch local PD?" "Just a verification ping." "Understood." I hung up, slid the phone back into my jacket, and turned around. Both officers were watching me curiously now. Karen, however, looked like she'd swallowed ice. "Everything all right?" one officer asked. "Yes," I said, "though before you leave, you might be getting a call from the Bureau's verification desk. Routine procedure." His brow furrowed. "The Bureau?" I reached into my inner pocket, withdrew a slim black wallet, and flipped it open. The gold seal caught the sunlight, bold, unmistakable, and entirely real. "Federal Bureau of Investigation," I said quietly. "James A. Lewis, Director." The younger officer's mouth fell open. The older one blinked twice, then instinctively straightened his posture. "Director Lewis?" "That's correct." I glanced toward Karen. "I was hoping to retire quietly, but sometimes trouble finds you anyway." Karen's hands trembled at her sides. You're not serious." "I'm afraid I am." I looked at the officer holding the evidence bag. "Could you log that under potential falsified evidence? You'll need to mark the complainant as the primary suspect." He nodded slowly, still processing the situation. "Yes, sir." "Wait, you can't. I didn't. It was just, I thought. You thought you could stage something," I said, voice low but steady. "You thought if you made enough noise, people would believe you before anyone checked the facts. That works in gossip, Mrs. Whitfield. It doesn't work in federal law." Her face crumpled. "It was a mistake. Planting an unknown substance? Filming the whole thing like it was a trophy?" I tilted my head. "That's not a mistake. That's intent." The younger officer cleared his throat gently. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to come with us." Karen turned toward him, eyes wide. "You can't arrest me. I'm the HOA president." "I'm aware," he said softly, pulling out his handcuffs, "but you still have to answer some questions downtown." Her knees wobbled. For a moment, I thought she might faint. "Director Lewis, please," she whispered. "I didn't know. I was just trying to protect the neighborhood." I met her gaze. "You weren't protecting anything, Karen. You were protecting your ego." The officers guided her toward the cruiser, reading her rights as she stumbled over half-formed excuses. Neighbors had started to peek through blinds and open doors. The tidy street, so used to silence and small talk, now hummed with whispered shock. As the car pulled away, the younger officer lingered. "Sir, we had no idea. We wouldn't have." I raised a hand. "You did everything by the book. You treated me like any other resident. That's exactly what I'd expect. No harm done." He nodded, visibly relieved. "We'll file the report and send a copy to your office." "Appreciated." When they left, the street fell quiet again. Only the rustle of leaves and the faint hum of cicadas filled the air. I stood beside my car, looking at the spot where the evidence bag had been, and let out a slow breath. It wasn't anger I felt, not really. Just a familiar disappointment of seeing what power does to ordinary people. Karen had wanted control so badly that she manufactured chaos to get it. It wasn't the first time I'd seen it, and it wouldn't be the last. That evening, the sunset bled gold across the manicured lawns. I sat on my porch sipping tea when a small group of neighbors approached. They looked nervous, as if walking into an interview. "Mr. Lewis," one of them said cautiously, "we just wanted to say we had no idea she'd go that far. She's been difficult for a long time." I nodded. She seemed organized. A few awkward chuckles followed. Another neighbor spoke up. So, is it true? You're with the FBI? I smiled faintly. Was? I was hoping for a quiet retirement. The first neighbor's eyes widened. You're the director? I held up a hand. Off the record. They laughed nervously, thanked me again, and drifted away. After they left, the silence returned, softer this time, almost respectful. For the first time since moving in, Oak Ridge Estates felt genuinely peaceful. The next morning, the HOA's website quietly updated. Karen's name vanished from the leadership page, replaced by a brief note, interim board pending. No explanation, no gossip, just a blank space where authority used to live. A week later, an envelope appeared in my mailbox. No return address, just my name typed neatly across the front. Inside was a single handwritten note. Mr. Lewis, I'm sorry. I let things get out of control. Please don't press charges. I never meant for it to go this far. K.I. folded the letter once, set it aside, and poured myself another cup of coffee. I didn't need vengeance. The system would handle her, and maybe she'd learn something from it. My part was done. Later that day, I walked to the lake trail at the edge of the subdivision. The air was still, sunlight dancing on the water. A few children rode past on bikes, waving. Life in the neighborhood went on as though nothing had happened, which in a way was exactly what I'd wanted from the beginning. Normalcy. I leaned against the railing, watching the ripples spread across the lake's surface. For the first time in months, I smiled without thinking about what might happen next. Behind me, a voice called out, one of the neighbors again, cheerful and unguarded. "Morning, Mr. Lewis?" "Morning," I replied. And that was that. No more investigations, no more power struggles. Just sunlight, quiet water, and the slow, steady peace I've been looking for all along.